Dr. Neha Sangwan, welcome back to Ayurvedic Healing and Beyond podcast.
Great.
Such an honor to have you back.
Great to be with you, Vignesh.
Now, Dr. Neha, last time we had the podcast, you were talking about you writing a book on burnout.
Yeah.
And then you told me about the book Powered by Me, and I'm so looking forward for the insights from that.
Boy, now I've done my touring and launched the book and all of these things. So I'd love to talk about Powered by Me.
Was there any particular findings that you thought, oh, this is alarming? Like, wow, how come we didn't know this?
So many. I've learned from going out in the world that people really need a practical way. They say this burnout thing, I know when I'm really overwhelmed, but tell me, how do I pick it up earlier? Mm-hmm. How do I find it before I'm in a doctor's office? Obviously, in Ayurveda, you're busy balancing and doing things upstream. So this is your world. I looked into the research around the many areas. So the way that I talk about burnout is where you are from burned out to fully charged can be determined by whether you have a net gain or a net drain of energy on a physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual level. Mm-hmm. So how do you figure that out? Well, most people, when I ask them questions, like let's say physical level, your food, your sleep, your movement, your energy levels, do they stay consistent throughout the day, right? Or do I ask someone in sleep, do you wake up feeling well rested? Most people are more interested in looking at their devices to see what their readiness score is when they wake up. They don't check in with their own body. So a lot of what I did on the road was, as I was traveling and speaking to people, was teaching them to reconnect to the brilliance of their own physiology, their own body, which is constantly having a communication with them. And they completely tuned out with technology and other, like how fast the world is moving, technology, any other people, social media, they're so tuned out. So a lot of what I did was literally, as I spoke to people, I tuned them back in. So that was fun. And I had no idea how disconnected people were and how much they rely on their technology. Even when I would ask them something as simple as I ask you this question, can you tell me, is there any physical sensation in your body? Heart racing, stomach turning, muscles contracted. 8 times out of 10? I don't know what you're talking about. No, I don't feel anything. And then began the process of me asking them to find their AirPod case for their speakers, or a stone or something they could hold so that they could tune back into feeling their own physiology, their own biology. I don't know, have you experienced this?
Yes, multiple times.
Yeah.
I mean, people who train that intuitive part, they become sensitive. But I think we all are sensitive, but it's just that, are you aware of it or not?
Yeah. And can you articulate it?
Yeah.
Right? So it's like sometimes people are aware that something's happening, but they don't have the words to explain what it feels like. So this idea of where you are on the burnout spectrum from burned out to fully charged, the way there's the mind component, which is the mind says, oh, I'll sleep when I'm dead. I've got a lot to do here. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm a 10 on sleep. But the body never lies. So the body will have some level of constriction, some level of muscles contracted, tightness, heaviness, some sense of protection. So what I was doing with them was helping them tune in so that their mind, their thoughts, and their body must be on the same page. So if they say, oh, I'm a 10 on sleep, but when I ask them that question, they feel heavy. Anytime the mind and the body are not on the same page, you must go with the body. Because the body always keeps the score, right? It's always tracking. And it won't feel light if you haven't slept. But the mind will give us all the reasons why faster is better and do more with less, and we must keep going. So that was one of the more important realizations. I knew it was bad, but I didn't know how bad it was, that we've completely disconnected. Because if you think back, right, Ayurveda takes us in ancient science to our natural state, our oneness with the world and our bodies and food. When we were in that state, our own physiology, us being tuned in to crackling in the forest or the sound of a predator coming, was the difference between life and death. And now we don't even use that sense anymore. So we don't have the awareness of when we're having a net drain of energy. And if we're not aware of it, we'll surely go all the way down the path of burnout.
And I think when one of the conversations that we had, you spoke about the power of community over to your health. Mm-hmm. I'm curious to know more on that.
Sure. So when I was telling you about these areas of net gain, net drain, physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual. So you're speaking now about the social component. So researchers have been studying this for quite some time. And let's move into the heart space. So there's a group called HeartMath that has been studying the radiation of our heart waves, right? And so in 2010, 2012, I went with them to Saudi Arabia. And that was when I started to read their research and learn that each of us has a field outside of us that actually is our own heart rhythm, right, is radiating. We can only measure it about 3 feet outside of us. But you and I, in this proximity, if we stay here about 10 minutes, we'll start to move into sync with one another. Or there's times where people say, oh, I didn't feel good in that room. Something was wrong, but they don't know what it is. And it's literally that they don't go into sync with another person. Now, one way that you know this is, how do we do EKGs for people, right? We put the leads on top of their chest and we pick up the rhythm from inside their heart. So we know that we're not putting it on their heart, we're putting it on their chest. So clearly we're picking up the rhythms a little bit outside there. So that's one thing. Also, women, when they are together, will go into sync in their monthly menstrual cycles, right? So we've known this for a long time. I did some research getting ready for the book and found that in 2007, 2008, there's a New England Journal of Medicine on obesity, stating that the most important factor in whether you gain weight or you don't and you become obese or you are not is your social network. And that's part of why even when this is our 3rd year coming to Sitaram. First of all, I do it with my partner, because health is quite important to me. And both of us have really been a positive influence on each other. And when we eat similarly, it makes our relationship more joyful, more connected, easier. But this whole idea that our social network, obviously, right? Like when I'm not motivated to even work out, but you say to me, come on, Neha, let's go for a walk. I'm much more motivated to come and do it together. So this idea of social community and how it influences our health can also be put into how we behave in other ways. So
that's a very profound, understanding. That's why they say choose your friends wisely, because when you choose your friend, you're actually taking their good and bad habits.
Yes. And you're going to be really influenced. You're going to learn and you're going to grow at the level that they want to learn and grow. You're going to certainly influence each other. So pretty important. So let me, on that scale that I was telling you from burnout, let me bring it back. The question I ask people, so I have a pulse check is what I call it, where at this moment in time, you could take a snapshot to see whether you're having a net gain or net drain of energy. What I say in the social energy section is simple and quick. Write down the top 5 people or groups of people that you spend the most time with, in person or online. And as you're making note, as you're taking inventory of your social experience, don't just use your mind, also pay attention with your body, your physiology. Are you feeling constricted, tight, and heavy? As I write Vignesh down on my sheet. Do I feel a constriction in my throat, a tightness in my chest? Or do I feel an openness and relaxation and ease? So you're using your body and your mind to decide whether you put a plus for net gain or a minus for net gain, drain. Mm-hmm. So it's a really important, simple, quick exercise for people to take inventory, because you may be trying to do many things right in your life. And you may also have chosen the environment, circumstances, relationships that perhaps you may have outgrown. Mm-hmm. And we think, I need to stay with these people. I've been with them for a while. Sometimes we outgrow community. Sometimes we outgrow a job. We outgrow a relationship. And I think that's why it's so important that we communicate well. We address conflict so that we can grow together. Mm-hmm. But sometimes that's not the case.
Sometimes when the communication is not going right.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm sure if I'm writing that person's name.
Yeah.
Maybe my colleague.
Yeah.
If there is some expectations mismatch, and then we have a conflict of, or let's say there is an argument. I'm sure if I write that name, I might have a crunched stick. Or sometimes when things are going really well, and then we both appreciate each other, I'm sure I might put plus things. Yeah. So would you say writing those names and tapping into how you feel, is it a plus or minus, will be the same, or it can fluctuate?
It is just a snapshot in time.
A screenshot of that particular thing.
Yeah, it's a snapshot of you right here, right now, in this moment. And here's the thing. In that moment, if you are having a disagreement, you've been not doing well, the information it's giving you is not that you need to leave that relationship necessarily. What it's giving you is right now, there's a net drain of energy. So your job then is to address that net drain. And maybe it's because you need to have a conversation, but it leads into all the other areas. Let's suppose that colleague and you are not getting along. Perhaps you think your colleague took credit for something you did and didn't share the credit. So now it's been a few weeks, and every time you see that colleague at work, you feel that constriction, friction. And every night when you go home, you look in the mirror, you're brushing your teeth. I should have said something. I didn't say something. So here's what happens. In social interactions, let's say the conflict is right here. It's between me and you. If I choose not to address it, this conflict doesn't go away. It just changes location. So now I swallow it inside me, and it becomes that inner conflict of me looking in the mirror or me tightening down. You may be going about your day perfectly fine. You have no idea. You're not doing something to me. I haven't found the courage or the words or the ability to connect to you and say, hey, Vignesh, we've been working together for a while. Something that happened in the meeting last week, could I please talk to you about it? It's been on my heart and mind. Sure, Neha, let's go for a walk and let's talk about it. You may not, it's not like you're the cause of my energy drain. It is that on a social level, something is draining me of energy. Another place that I tie this in, if people miss it in the social section, is the section before this, the emotional energy. Because social and emotional are very connected. And so what I ask in the emotional section is, just tell me, where in your life are you avoiding conflict or challenging emotions? On a physical, mental, emotional, social, spiritual, financial, work, where, on what level, or other, there might be something else. Where are you avoiding conflict or challenging emotions? And conversely, of those same areas, which ones give you joy and peace? And now I get a quick inventory on, finances, physical health. All of a sudden you start to know very clearly. And if we don't take inventory regularly on ourselves, or our world is changing so quickly that these drains and gains are also changing with us. So it's really important to check in with ourselves, just like we check in on many other things. At work, we think nothing of starting, where is everybody on this project? And so I say, Neha, where are you on the project of you? So it's a little bit of a check-in. And I'm happy to give you the link. I even have it on my website. If the people listening are interested in doing...
I would love to put this in the show notes.
You bet. I'll give you the link and we'll put it below.
So it's like I just tap into my feelings and then I see, okay, Vignesh, where do I feel certain things that is constricting me or bothering me or challenges that I'm
I'll give you a series of questions. It's the Burnout Awareness Prescription. And you can just go right from the top to the bottom, physical, mental, emotional, social, spiritual. And it'll give you, as you're doing it, we are very familiar with doing it on a mental level. So it's good to give people structure. And then also what I have in this assessment is me in short videos walking them through each section so they know what to listen to. I don't just say food. I say things like, how often throughout the day do you eat whole and nourishing foods? Because it's not only what you're eating, it's the timing of how you're eating it. I learned a lot of this from you. Then when I say about sleep, I've learned that it's not just the quantity of sleep, 7 to 9 hours each night.
How restful it is.
It's the quality of sleep that you're experiencing. And now, let me finish physical, and then I'm going to tie this together with what we were talking about. If I say movement, I say things like, do you have a joyful way to move in your body multiple times a week? I don't like to make it too prescriptive or too restrictive because people know. They know how they feel related to how they move and all of this. And then the last one is on energy. So do you feel an even flow of energy throughout the day? Or do you have the post-lunch or 3 o'clock energy dip where you're scrambling to get a cookie or chai or something to get you back? So I'm trying to make this a pretty general yet specific way that when people hear these questions, they see food, they're like, oh, that's too overwhelming. I don't know. Am I good at food or not? We can ask them some simple guiding questions where they can do a check-in. There's one more piece here. I also ask, how satisfied are you with the way that you're nourishing your body, etc.? That's a little bit of a nuance. And the reason I ask it is, if they are very satisfied with it, that's not an area they're ready to address, right? It may not be an area that's going quite well, but if they're satisfied with it, it's also not a highlight for them yet. That means they need it to go down, the energy to go down a little more, or for them to feel a little more pain before they're ready to address it. Now, people always say to me, where do I start? Once I get this whole assessment, what's the first place? It doesn't matter. What matters is that where are you the most dissatisfied? Where are you ready to do the work and focus? Right? Because that's the most important piece. And so everything's connected. So for example, if someone says movement, I'll go for a walk. After dinner, each day I'll go for a 30-minute walk or twice a week. How beautiful is it that you go for a walk, that breaks apart your ATP, so your energy source, adenosine triphosphate. So the adenosine and the 3 phosphates break to give you energy. That adenosine goes up to your brain and helps you sleep better. I don't care where you start. It has to be a place that you're interested in, because it will influence your movement, will influence your sleep, will influence you wanting to eat better. It'll all do its thing. So I don't mind where you start. And it's part of the reason I like coming here, because when I come here, I get to do all of them at once. So you put the structure in place that helps. That's not the part I'm good at. And so when the structure is here, I can naturally be in community of like-minded people where I feel a sense of connection. And I can also have the structure that allows me to do many things at once. So
it is, on one hand, there is an irony that we have to find these communities and go and fit in there. And also it depends on how much resources that you have to change your community.
Yeah.
That's also another thing. But I think somewhere we can take baby steps.
For sure.
But when somebody is in, let's say they are in burnout, and they say they're not happy with the working culture that they are in.
Yeah.
And I want to know if there are more research that, about the work culture and how it's impacting your health, because I see a lot of burnouts.
Yeah.
And because they are the leftovers of the modern medicine.
That's right.
Now only they are getting to know what it is doing to people, the hormones, the aging, forgetfulness, immune system.
Yep.
Now, when I tell them, maybe you should quit the job, one of my first patients who came with burnout, I said, maybe you should just quit the job. I said, that's so easy for you to say that, And then I was realizing, yeah, it's actually quite easy to say from a prescriptive point of view to quit the job.
That's right.
But, there could be a lot of things. There could be financial stress. And in some countries, a job means it's as good as your life and death.
That's right.
And if they're giving up that job means they have to, maybe they don't know who's going to pay for the food or the school bills for the children, and multiple things will come there. So choosing their job is such an important thing. It's as good as choosing how your future health and well-being is going to be.
So the person you report to at work has a bigger influence on your health than your doctor.
Wow, the person you report to work has a bigger influence on your health than your doctor.
Because it comes back to, the research shows that stress causes or exacerbates more than 80% of all illness. I think it's higher than that, but I'll go with what I've read. My personal experience as a physician and my own burnout absolutely tell me it's much higher than that. But think about it. Let's say you don't get along with your boss. Let's say your boss, asks you to keep staying late and you're exhausted and doesn't care because they want more work done. In the end, you don't want to lose your job because it also means other changes are going to have to happen. So you just keep pushing yourself, right? But it's also that idea that we spoke about earlier. If you don't get along with your boss, if you don't feel respected, seen, valued by your boss, that's going to be a net drain on you. Think about it. Physically, you're not going to be taking care of yourself. Mentally, you're going to be having thoughts running in your mind that are going to be draining you. Emotionally, you're going to dread the meeting, the experience, coming to work. You'll be walking into work or even turning on the remote work, and you'll feel your physiology. Again, your body map. I call it your body map. Your stomach will be sinking. Your heart will be racing. All sorts of ways that your body's telling you much earlier. When you were saying this piece about telling someone to quit their job, now that I'm also an executive coach, and one of the pieces in helping people tap into their intuition, when I was a doctor, all they wanted were prescriptions from me, the magic prescription. I was going to make it all better. Now I've shifted a little bit into asking people questions. Have you ever considered a change in where you live or your work? And then I get the answers. Well, I've thought of that, but I couldn't because, right? And so I've started to play and do a dance where sometimes I prescribe and sometimes I get curious. And so I've noticed that feels more gentle to them. And it's useful because what we're doing is we're tapping them into their own intuition. And then they have the agency and the control, right? Versus I wouldn't want to let my doctor down. My doctor told me this is probably, and then sometimes it's really important for us when they're having a heart attack on the gurney and they're not willing to change what's going on. we must say, if you don't change how you're eating and living your lifestyle, this could very well kill you. That's also our job. So we walk a fine line. And I think it's our art, not the science of medicine, and our connection, once again, socially, to our patients and the people around us that determines how much we influence them.
I totally agree. This was one example I always tell in my speeches. Once a patient came with severe allergies, prescribed medicines. 3 months later, I meet this patient. I said, "Doctor, now all these allergies are gone." So as a doctor, I take pride in my prescription. And she said, "Wow, so the medicines work?" "No, doctor, actually, I just quit my job."
Yes.
How, when you quit the job, your stress is gone, sleeps better, eat better, and then the allergies are gone.
Yeah.
Sometimes your environment is a big trigger for your allergies, like you said about the obesity.
That's right. Well, you know what it is? What I've come up with in thinking through this is there's relationships, jobs, situations in our lives. And as long as the price of staying, right, is less than the payoff of being there, most people stay. But it isn't until the moment that the price exceeds the payoff
that they take the pain to change.
That they will take the pain to change. So that's why I've sometimes realized that as a physician and as a coach, I want to save people from the pain that I can see will inevitably come. But in fact, that's not my job. My job is to figure out how satisfied are you with where you are right now. Have you ever considered shifting this or shifting that? And how might I be able to support you in that? And if it's writing a prescription and giving a medicine, awesome. If it's helping them with practices, because whatever it is. But I think the fear, that constriction, tightness, heaviness in our body, that discomfort that we were talking about earlier, someone letting go of their social network, their financial stability, their routine that may keep them in a rhythm, even if it's not a great rhythm, at least there's stability there. There's some security there. And so that price versus payoff dynamic is the best way that I can explain how some people move into the change and others don't. And if you have a community, it makes it easier because you can divide your pain and you can multiply your wins and celebrate together. So there's some level of the net underneath you that I find gives people that courage. Because you can't be comfortable and courageous at the same time. So what is it that's going to allow you to get uncomfortable? And I think sometimes people also think, oh, I have relationships. I have social community. This is now I can't even believe I'm saying this, but material for my next book. I don't know what the name of it is. I don't know when it'll be out. None of those things. But I'm already starting to get the downloads of what's coming. The questions people asked me when I was touring is, how do you know, just like you said, oh, there's this conflict of a colleague at work. How do you know what quality a relationship is? And so I came up with a five level simple, and we can obviously go into things much more nuanced, but just a quick check. So there's level 1, broken relationships. Perhaps you didn't have those communication skills. Perhaps you outgrew a relationship. Perhaps someone betrayed you or did something that was upsetting. Perhaps they left this earth in the physical body. Those ones, though, I'll tell you, if they're dear to you, they're still in your heart. They go from being with you to being within you. So that's a little bit different. But broken relationships, they're not with you. Level 2 on relationship is dysfunctional relationships. People are with you, but they are not for you. They undermine you. They speak about you, not to you. They are passive aggressive. They're working against you. Although they might be your colleague at work who thinks they're competing with you for the promotion or whatever it is. It might be a family member who feels jealous or envious of you. So the idea of dysfunctional relationships, you'll know because each time you leave, you'll have that drain of energy. Perhaps you're looking forward to visiting, but on the way home, you're having a very different experience than the anticipation, right? So that's dysfunctional. So broken and dysfunctional. The third one is transactional. That is someone who is with you, but they are for themselves. So there's something we're exchanging. And if that is not there, our relationship is dissolved or non-existent. Now, it's not bad to have a transactional relationship as long as both parties are in agreement that this is what works for us. Then there is, fourth is relational exchange. These are people who are with you and they are for you. Your wins are their wins. You get into, some program of your desire, they're celebrating for you. It's their win too, right? And so those are relational exchanges. And then this is what I am now moving into and working for in the world. It's called sacred, level 5, sacred exchanges. They can happen with a stranger on the street. They can happen with people you've known your whole life. It doesn't matter. But these are the exchanges that are of deep and meaningful conversations. They are of us dipping into our own vulnerability and speaking authentically, even when it might not be comfortable. This is the space where it heals us, changes us, shapes us. These exchanges are, I am with me, I am for you, and for us. And you are also in that place. To me, those are sacred exchanges. Does that make sense?
I'm just thinking how we can attract more and more of this fifth type of relationships.
Yes, because they're healing. Like,
Empowering.
Getting healthy is a team sport. Healing happens in community. They're empowering. We learn, we grow, we cry, we share, we bond. It's, to me, sacred exchanges. I wrote about it in Powered by Me, and I wrote about the broken relationship of my uncle Mukumama, who died in a plane crash. It was him and 9 buddies bought a plane. I was 10 years old. He was going to take me in this 4-seater plane. He's a pilot. But a few minutes before he was leaving, he said, "Neha, my buddy and his children want to go. I'm not going to take you." I was very devastated. But he went that day. He went flying, and a hot air balloon drifted onto the runway. And that's never supposed to happen over an airport. And he tried to get around it, and a plane landed on him that was trying to land. So he died that day. And I remember, it's taken me years and years. I mean, now I'm 54 years old. So this is, 44 years ago. But I remember it very clearly. A broken relationship that now he's not with me, but he's within me. So, I can feel that presence. So now I didn't realize why every time I get on a plane, even coming here to India, anytime there's turbulence, I feel very calm. People are popping their anti-anxiety medicine and their sleep medicine and all these things. And for some reason, I feel very calm and protected. Like, almost like that day I was so devastated, he didn't take me with him. But I had a greater understanding that, in fact, I was saved that day. So now I fly and I speak, and I'm often on a plane. And now the person next to me, I always wonder, of all the people in the world and all the places that they're going, of all the people on this plane, Do you know how many multiplications there are of who you're sitting next to? How did you end up next to me? How are you the person, the soul? So if they ever speak or connect, I don't start anymore with my headphones in my ear. I just arrive. And I wonder, who is the person I'll be sitting next to for the next 6 hours? Uninterrupted. When do we ever get that time? And I have had more sacred exchanges on planes than any other place. And it's a stranger. And we have the most meaningful conversations. And so I think it's about us adjusting how we view each other. Do you think you have to know someone for a very long time? Or are you someone who says, as long as I'll never see this person again, I'll have an honest conversation with them? So you have to know yourself, and you have to know what matters to you. And moving forward, I want to build community virtually and in person. 2025 for me is going to be building a platform and a community called Sacred Exchange.
That's very sacred.
Yeah, right? Fun. Why are we here if not to support, love, and learn from each other?
That's why the word communication, I think it comes from the word commune.
Yeah.
Like where we feel safe.
Yeah.
Like I think communication is a opportunity to feel safe, where you become a community.
Yeah, and connect.
Yes.
Connect on so many levels. And sometimes get clear, because people try to avoid the friction, the conflict. But it's in fact in that conflict that we connect and grow. It has the opportunity. If we're curious, if we want to know, we get to grow. I did a 7-day Lead Like Gandhi experience. And at the end, they said to me, what is your purpose? And what came out of me surprised me. I said, every interaction, experience, and relationship is an opportunity to grow, heal, and learn. And if we trust ourselves and we trust each other, we'll enter into the sacred dance of our souls connecting, and we'll learn our life lessons together. And then only can we evolve as one world family. Serving as a catalyst to make that happen is the purpose of my life.
Such a noble one.
Yeah. So I feel it in the interconnections of my heart opens, because for so long in my life, I kept it closed. I speak in the book about being bullied, and so many things in the world have us not feeling like we belong. And I find that when I speak to someone like you, that I feel as a kindred spirit, a fellow soul on this journey, trying to create sacred exchanges and sacred experiences in the world for other humans. There's like a freedom I feel in showing up as my full self, because, sometimes people say to me, oh, don't cry. Like, what are you doing? Like, that's not okay. And I think as I've gotten older, my view on showing emotion and being vulnerable with each other is not a sign of weakness. How I view it is, I trust myself enough and I trust you enough to allow you close to my heart, to what matters to me. And so that's another thing I think would help us in the world, is if we started to see emotions and view them as a space of strength and sacred connection and authenticity, rather than needing to project an image on social media or to the world that we're perfect. What if we are human? And what if being human and sometimes being messy, that's the perfect place for communication, for connection, for sacred exchange.
Now, Neha, just explain to me, when you say we outgrow relationships.
Yeah.
In that process, when you outgrow relationships or community or jobs, there could be a lot of anger involved.
Yeah.
And when I say anger, what I mean is maybe one person outgrew, the other person didn't.
Yeah. This is the nature of relationships, which is, I said each interaction, each experience, each relationship is an opportunity, right? For us to grow, heal, unite, learn. It's an opportunity. We don't always take it. So the way I think of it is, we always come to a new relationship with optimism and excitement. But, let's talk about marriage. On someone's wedding day, there's no doubt that both people are thinking, hey, maybe this could be the thing I've been hoping for, dreaming of. But the bet people really make is, will we not be happy on the day that we're getting married, but will we grow together? And that requires us wanting to use each experience, interaction, relationship as an opportunity to learn. But if what we think is, okay, now I've gotten married, I'm done, don't need to grow anymore, this person's locked in, and we stop our own growth, then we don't have the opportunity to allow growth and expansion in the relationship. And the world is going to keep changing. New opportunities, new friends, new things are going to be coming. And so the question is, can we, I call it me, we world, can we expand our perspective such that we know who we are and what we value, we show up and take risks in our connection to others, we're curious about them and what they're growing and learning about, and we're also taking into account this broader world with generative AI and technology moving faster. They're trying to make it, and might be succeeding at making it faster than humans. So we're in this world that's moving at this pace. If we do not choose to grow ourselves, certainly others will outgrow us. And if we're in relationships or jobs that don't give us growth opportunities, what will happen is we'll experience boredom. We'll become stuck. And in that place, there will need to be enough pain that will finally have us saying, I need to leave this relationship, need this job. And we may leave this job. We may actually take rash decisions because we haven't been doing our own growth along the way. But it's definitely true. There were people I grew up with when I was young who, what we had in common when I was young was, can Neha come out and play? Neha, yes, Neha. So our commonality was playing. As we grew older and we realized perhaps our values were very different, perhaps we didn't grow in similar ways, there were people that I've outgrown and moved into different arenas with, or changed the level at which I connect to them. And so I think there's a natural evolution, the cycles of relationships and souls connecting, if we believe that we're all in, what I call a metaphorical life school. There's going to be certain times that you travel with certain beings for certain periods of healing. I think there's times that our patients travel with us, and times when they don't need us so much, or they've gone on to another way of believing and thinking and learning and healing. And so for whatever time our souls get to travel together on this path of life, that's a sacred exchange.
When we discuss about attracting different kind of relationships, like we spoke about broken ones, and the sacred ones, the one that empowers you. I don't know whose book, I think it was Louis Hay's book. Your world is always your mirror of your inner world.
Yes.
So I think if you are broken with yourself, you will end up attracting these broken relationships.
Yes.
Would you connect with that?
Totally.
So if I am my own cheerleader and champion, I end up attracting good relationships where they will also become a champion. Likewise.
That's right. 100%. So just imagine in capital letters, capital M-E, me. If there was a water in front of that, in the reflection, it would be we. And I don't think that's by chance. I think that's very true. When people don't reflect and introspect and elevate their own awareness and expand themselves, they wonder why in a relationship they end up with the same person but in different clothing, different name, different. Why my last best friend broke my trust and left. Now I have another one. I thought it was going to be different, but it's the same story. And they run a life of repeat.
The same patterns.
Same patterns. Why? Because the universe is energy. Just like we started talking about, the energy of our heart radiates outside of us. It attracts and it's in rhythm with, or it's out of rhythm with certain people and souls. And so in that same experience, we're attracting to us that which we are. And so this idea of where we resonate, we want to ask ourselves, where have I left and abandoned me for others? Because suddenly I'm attracting people who are leaving me. If I am someone who, just like you said, champions others, is happy and celebratory of others, right? But I wonder why people aren't celebrating me. Then you want to ask yourself, there might be a gap, which is, I may be very outwardly focused on celebrating other people, but inwardly, I don't believe I'm really worthy of the same celebration. So it can be nuanced, but this is where a great coach is very helpful. Because they'll ask you the questions that will lead you back to the me. And a lot of times that's not easy for people to see. It's almost like asking a fish, when water was invented. Like they don't know, they're swimming in it. It's all they've known. So many times people saw this in their family, they grew up in it, and they didn't know that there was another way to be. So that's when outside help can come in with a new and fresh perspective. Or just people asking you thoughtful questions. And this is where your community, being willing to be honest with you, not just tell you what you'd like to hear, but to really be honest with you. Like, hey, Vignesh, are you okay? You don't seem quite like yourself. Is something happening? And there's really a big difference between belonging and fitting in. If you're in a community where you need to be like them, that's fitting in. If you're contorting yourself to try and do things the way they want you to, that's fitting in. But if you get to be yourself and they welcome that, that's belonging. And so I think sometimes people misunderstand those two. So I think
surviving and thriving.
Say it again.
Surviving and thriving.
That's right. Are you contorting yourself into, a jalebi, a pretzel? Are you trying to fit yourself into a way of being? Or do you have a sense of ease and joy and calmness and you get to be authentically you? I knew when I was going to share that story about my uncle, there was a day when I couldn't share the story without sobbing. Now I notice when it comes up, when his name is Mokumama, he's my mom's brother. When Mokumama comes up, I feel more healed about it. And I also feel more integrated that he's within me. And I noticed, this feels like a safe setting. And so I think each person needs to be able to assess that for themselves. What is this topic? How comfortable do I feel speaking it? What setting am I in? And do I feel the self-trust and the interpersonal trust that I'm ready to share that? Right? And sometimes I get emotional, but I've learned emotions are energy in motion. Let it move through you and it doesn't get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I noticed, as I had that moment and I acknowledged it, it all dissipated.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for, providing such a safe space.
Neha, now knowing with your medical background
Mm-hmm.
and doing such enormous research and understanding the importance of having a good relationships, working culture, who your boss is.
Yeah.
Now, there are so many diseases that we call diseases of idiopathic in nature.
Idiopathic diseases means I don't know the cause of the disease. And what that means, I love that you say that, because as a doctor, idiopathic hypertension, I give you a very fancy words. And what I'm saying is idiopathic, I don't know the cause of hypertension, your high blood pressure. But if my patient is worried, oh, you have headaches and their, idiopathic hypertension is causing this, you're having a hypertensive crisis. Oftentimes, people who haven't studied what we've studied don't understand the fancy language. But what I've realized in burnout is that oftentimes chronic illness, let's say migraines, are not, even though it shows up on a physical level, it's not always a physical cause. So it's like sometimes something unresolved on a mental, emotional, social, and spiritual level it's unresolved because you're not addressing it, you're ignoring it. It would be a net drain in the emotional and social levels, perhaps even spiritual level. It's showing up in your physical body to get your attention. That's that body map. First, perhaps you have a little twinge in your shoulder. You ignore it, and suddenly your neck feels tight. You ignore it, now you have a headache. You ignore it even more, and you wake up and you can't get out of bed. Your whole back is out. So this idea of ignoring communication in a relationship, in the relationship we have with our own selves, emotionally and physically, I just want everybody listening to know, it doesn't go away. It only gets louder. And when it's an interpersonal issue, the conflict just changes position. And now it's inside me as a ticking time bomb, waiting to explode. Sometimes it's a heart attack. Sometimes it's illness, whatever it is. So idiopathic is a way of saying, we don't know the cause of. And if somebody doesn't know the cause of it, it's time for you to start solving it on another level. Get a different kind of medicine. So what I'd say for traditional medicine is traditional medicine primarily takes and treats acute illness. And that's good. If I get in a car crash and I break my bone, I want my bone fixed. If my appendix is bursting or I'm having a heart attack, I hope there is a traditional doctor right there that can take care of me. But when we use short-term solutions, medications and surgery, not all medications, but some. I take thyroid every day, so I'm not against medications. But when we take short-term fixes and we just repeat them over and over again, and we call that a long-term solution, money, it costs lots and lots of money, which is why healthcare costs in the US go up 18 to 20% each year. Because when you're not actually solving the problem, how can it get less expensive? You keep band-aiding it. That's where naturopathy and Ayurveda and all sorts of whole functional medicine look in a much more holistic way. And I think people want to figure out, this is what I would ask someone listening. On what level are you ready to solve the problem? So this is what I ask people when they come to me. Because if they tell me, I know how to help them. Number one, do you want to avert a crisis? Here comes a crisis and you want me to just do anything we can to avert the crisis. Number two, would you like me to help you stay afloat? You want to stay, there's no crisis, but you're not, maybe you're doggy paddling in the deep end and you want me to just help you stay afloat. Or would you like me to help you heal the root cause? Because if you know on what level you're looking for my help, I'll know best where to direct you. So that's another series of questions that I ask. But if you're at the idiopathic stage, if someone's telling you something's idiopathic, you're at the stage where you want to avert a crisis or stay afloat. And so that's a good thing to know, because to me, we'll go back to the, price versus payoff. Mm-hmm. It just means someone's payoff is higher than the price, and they're not yet at the place where they're interested in changing.
I think staying afloat is immunosuppressants, painkillers.
Yes, it can be.
Sure.
Because, this is something
I cannot say it's just that, but sometimes it can be life-saving too. I must also say that.
But see, when it's life-saving, you're averting a crisis because you need it. We need all of these levels as humans because we're growing and we're learning. There's pain points that we're not ready to face yet. And it's smart of us to protect ourselves because it takes courage. If someone just goes jumping in and says, oh, I want to heal the root cause, but they're not ready, that will create a mental and emotional crisis for them. So change and the pace at which we help our fellow souls on the journey is our job to take into consideration, to ask them and not believe that what's right for us would be right for them, or what's right for person A would be right for person B. That, to me, is the art of medicine, which is being that support system that takes into account where they are in their courage and their growth.
I love those questions. Like we ask, how committed are you for change? Is it like, you like this? Sometimes, being sick, it gives a lot of payoff.
Yes. And sometimes they're still learning the lesson and they're not ready to graduate from that lesson. And so that's okay. Take more time. And when you're ready, I'll be here.
There's this book called Love Your Disease. Maybe it's keeping you healthy.
Oh, wow. Okay, I've never heard of this. I want to read this.
It's about sometimes people, when you are sick, it's much easier to say no because you don't want to attend this because I'm sick.
Well, you have a legitimate
reason. Not to hurt someone and at the same get your way.
That's right. Oh, that is so powerful. I remember I was helping a client's daughter, and she had a lot of anxiety, and she wanted to get out of an experience, the field trip that the school was going on. And when the school called me, because I was the nearest person to her, said, can you please come in? Something's wrong with her. Can you please come? By the time I got there, she was vomiting in the toilet. And I said to her, I put my hand on her back and I said, I'm here now. What's going on? And she said, I was so anxious that they wouldn't believe me, that I got physically ill. But I was so grateful I was vomiting in the toilet because the moment I did that, they called you. So I knew that my anxiety wasn't enough because they couldn't see it. But my vomit in the toilet, they could see it. And she just started crying and hugging me and holding me and saying, this is what I needed, but I couldn't ask for it. And I thought to myself, my God, like a child knows that the world that they're in only listens to the physical. And she literally made herself physically ill to get the help she needed emotionally from me. And it's true. The school said, she's clearly physically not well. Call this person in who's the family's,
guardian.
Guardian, and you can take her. And she said that's what she needed to do to feel safe. So I think there's so many factors in getting healthy, getting well, belonging, outgrowing. Maybe you belonged for a while and now you're in a space of transition and change. I think anytime we become complacent, knock, 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 the body starts to tell us again, our heart, our body, our mind, our spirit, we start moving into the pace of change. And I just know that the world is moving faster and faster with technology. So we are all co-creating a world that's moving faster. I think now faster than our own biology can handle. And so the gap between our own physiology and biology and well-being and the pace of the world that we're living in is going to require us to think in a new way. And, sacred exchanges everywhere you go, noticing that you can get grounded again in yourself and connect to another human. I think we're going to need that in a world of technology.
I think that's going to be a scarcity. I fear if we don't do the right things to turn it around.
I think we must do that. You're exactly right. We're in agreement. I couldn't, but I want people to remember, we are the most sophisticated technology there is. 37.2 trillion cells are somehow functioning in a way that allows us to be here for this life school together. So in the fast pace, we get to make choices. And we're going to have people who the Band-Aids and the crises may start coming. The price may start to exceed the payoff pretty quickly. And our job, I think, is to be there and embrace the technology that helps us, learn when to put it down and say no, and when to find out how we can support each other in this new world.
When you look at that, it's a very exciting future that we have when you are able to use the right technology in the right places.
Yeah. Not only does it bring efficiency, it allows us to have more capacity. But too much or too little of anything is the problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And it feels like I almost laugh. It's like nature is silently just showing us. It doesn't say anything. It doesn't prescribe for us. It doesn't even ask us questions. It literally just role models seasons of the year where we're growing, we're blooming, we're celebrating, we're, hibernating. Like, it shows us that we're supposed to exert and then rest. Even technology. We would never expect technology to work if it wasn't plugged in, if we didn't give it time to rest. But somehow we humans have started to believe that we can do it alone and that we don't need each other. But nature needs an ecosystem.
Yeah.
And it's so humble. It just shows us quietly. In the pandemic, when the whole world stopped moving, and the air got cleaner, and the dolphins returned, and how quickly nature just regenerates. And we have that capacity within us. And I just fear a little bit that we might take things too far. But if we do, guess what?
It'll autocorrect.
It'll correct, and we'll come back, and we'll figure it out. So I think my optimism with technology is that technology will do great where there is some consciousness with it. And where there's not, we'll learn. And there too is the opportunity to learn, grow, and do it differently.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this was such a wonderful conversation. I'm sure many people listening to this, some might think I need to change my job. Some might think I need to leave this community. Some might think, oh, this is where I feel so good in there and not here. Some people say when I was in that place, I lost weight. At this place, I put on weight to be stressed.
Yeah.
So
that's your body protecting you too, right? It's physically protecting you from stress. And, even in this last year that I did the tour, I'm launching a book on burnout. And there were a few times where I thought I needed some of my own advice. And as I was there, I noticed my body was changing as I'm going through menopause and hormones are changing. So too did I need protection. And I can be mad at my body and feel upset, or I can shift and change and adjust. And so I started saying to myself, first I was annoyed that I didn't fit into my clothes. And then I decided I would take a different approach. Mm-hmm. So now I say to my body, thank you, body, for expanding to absorb the stress that I couldn't. As soon as I am able, I will take over. And as I am at this retreat, I am taking over. Mm-hmm. So, we are going to change. Our bodies are going to change. Our phase of life is going to change. Our relationships are going to change. And the question is, are we going to stay stagnant? Mm-hmm. Or are we going to evolve with them?
I think the nature doesn't allow stagnation, so don't have a choice.
We try, though. Yeah. We really do try. And I know by virtue of somebody listening to this podcast that they are a human that is interested and engaged in their own growth and learning. But with the unknown, I think it will be helpful for us to surround ourselves with the right others. Mm. And I did do a TEDx talk many years ago. I'll give that link to you in the notes as well, called The Community Cure, where there's lots of examples of ways in which community has been synergistically powerful. Mm. So I would say to anybody listening, who are the 5 people, groups of people, online or in person, that you connect to, and how does your body respond? Contraction or relaxation and ease as you write that down. And think about the quality of those relationships. Are they broken, dysfunctional, transactional, relational, or sacred exchanges? What percentage of your relationships fall into which categories, just approximately? And might that be a place where you could shift?
Very profound. I think we all could have more and more sacred exchanges in this world. Sacred.
And healing. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Neha. I really look forward for your next book on sacred exchanges.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.